I saw something on the internet this past week, and I want to share it with you. It's different. If your entire life was summed up into one 24-hour day, it would go something like this. If you're 10 years old, it would be 3 a.m. in the morning. And if you're 20 years old, it would be 6:30 a.m. And if you're 30 years old, it's 9 a.m. If you're 40 years old, it's a little bit past noon. If you're 50 years old, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. If you're 60 years old, it's 6:30 in the evening. And if you're 70 years old, it's just a couple minutes past 10 o'clock. Now, the point, there's two really. Point one is, whatever you're going to get done with your life, you might want to get started on it because we're running out of time. And point number two, if you're not doing anything with your life, doesn't much matter what time it is, now does it? We talked about 2021. In a lot of ways, glad to see it gone. Tough year, a year of crisis, a year of changes and disappointment and loss for a lot of people. But as I said earlier, there's still lessons to be learned, but we're off to a better place. Good news today is that it's 2021. We're going to start over. But you just don't say, oh boy, a new year. I'm just going to have a fantastic year. You have to plan to make it better. Solomon says an intelligent person aims at wise actions, but a fool starts off in many directions. I've had a couple years like that. But if we're going to have a better year this year, we need to be aiming at some important things. So how's your plan going? We're only in day 3, but I have some suggestions for you. First of all, number one, accept responsibility for your life. This is not a popular thing to preach today because our culture says none of your problems are your problem. They're not your fault. Blame the environment, blame your teachers, blame your parents, blame your spouse, blame anybody because it's not your fault. But you really are not going to go far in life if you keep living like that. Step one is to assume responsibility. Galatians says each person must be responsible for himself. Rick Warren says there's 3 different kinds of people: accusers, excusers, and choosers. I like that. Accusers go through life accusing other people, blaming someone else all the time for their problems. It's not my fault, it's their fault. Excusers go through life trying to make excuses for what is not working. I love this verse. The lazy person is full of excuses. Solomon nailed that one. Choosers, on the other hand, simply say, I choose to take responsibility for who I am and for what I do, my actions. Years ago, William Glasser shocked the mental health industry with his book called Reality Therapy. And you should read it even today because it is still going strong, very popular. He says, if you have a problem, get over it. Stop whining so much about it. Take responsibility. And as far as you can, change or solve that problem. I'm amazed how many times I've had to go back to Glasser, even in a church situation. It's not anybody else's fault why you are like you are. You are simply who you choose to be. And it's no one else's job to change you. If you need changing, that's your job. That's your responsibility. That's step one, advice for a new year. Number two is believe you can actually do it. There's a verse Paul writes, "There's nothing I cannot master with the help of Christ who gives me the strength." And the question really is, do we believe that? I know we've read it, heard it all the time, but do we really believe that there's nothing I cannot master, handle, overcome with the help of Christ who gives me strength? That means in the next 365 days, nothing is going to come before you and staying on top of it and handling it. Of course, with the help of Jesus Christ. Now, this is not positive thinking. This is not psyching yourself up like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. There are a lot of good self-help books out there, and I'm not trashing them at all. They're good books. But they just tell you what to do. They don't give you the power to do it. Now, Christianity is different. Christianity offers you the power to do what the books cannot offer. The Bible is full of people that God had to change. He just flat had to change them before they were worth anything. And that's still available to a Christian. How about Moses? God goes to Moses and says, I want you to save a nation. Moses says, man, I got kicked out of Egypt because I killed somebody. I'm feeding sheep. On top of that, I stutter. Can't even talk straight. I'm slow of speech. And you want me to be the spokesman for an entire nation? God says, yep, you'll do. And he did a fine job. God went to a guy named Gideon. He says, I want you to be my spokesman. I want you to be the teacher of my people. I'm going to use you to save the country. And Gideon says, hey, what are you talking about? I'm the youngest kid in the poorest family of the smallest tribe in the nation. God says, yeah, I can use you. And God does indeed. There's a guy named Jeremiah. Jeremiah is my hero because Jeremiah is just doom and gloom. And God says, I want you to be my preacher to the nation. And Jeremiah says, who are you talking about? I'm Mr. Depression. I'm always in a funk. I'm a guy who's depressed all the time. And besides that, I'm only a teenager. And God says, well, you know what? Guess what? I'm going to use you. And that's the beauty of the second step. God does indeed have the power to help us change when we assume the responsibility for that change. It just doesn't come down out of heaven automatically. It's something we've got to do, something God's willing to partner with us. Now, step 3 comes the tough stage. God has given us a wonderful gift, the ability to change and to choose. But here's the hard part. What do you choose? How do you choose what's best? Job says, just as the mouth tastes good food, the ear tests the word it hears. So let us discern for ourselves what is right. Let us learn together what is good. Boy, I got a lot of people I'd like to read that verse to. But here's the bottom part of it. You can't do what's important until you clarify what is important. Your values determine your vision. So you have to ask yourself, what is it? It's important for me to be doing in my life. What is my mission? What is my goal? Why do I get up every day? What is my purpose? All these fit together. Most people, I think, have this vague feeling of, I just want to be happy. And that's lovely. But even then, they've never sat down to ask, what will it take to make them happy? They've never written out their values. There's an old proverb that says, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it with remarkable accuracy. That's true. You have to accept responsibility for who you are and what you do. You have to believe that it is possible to get it done. Then there's that tough part. You have to figure out what it is you're trying to get done, what it is you want to change about your life, what it is you want to add. And here's where it's tough. Most all of you today are Christians, if not every one of you. Your choice is not between good and evil. Your decision today is not, am I going to have a quiet time with God, or am I going to murder my mother-in-law? That's not what you're wrestling with. Your decision is between the good and the better and the best. Paul writes, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Some things are not necessarily wrong. They're just not necessary. You don't have time for everything, so let me give you a 30-second seminar on time management. Do what's important first. Don't worry about the rest. You may not ever finish your to-do list because everybody and his brother keeps adding things to your to-do list. But you decide what's important, and you start there. And the last point is do it now. Don't put it off. Don't wait. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never get anything done, Solomon says. Even in the past few weeks, the phrase I hear more often is, when things settle down, I'm gonna do this. And I got news for you. Things are not going to settle down completely. We still have a couple rough months. And even when everybody tells us things are back to normal, it's still not going to be normal. So all of us have to understand that life has to be enjoyed under imperfect situations and circumstances. Whatever you're going to do, go ahead and start it. Don't wait for the perfect day. Now, give you a little bit of a head start and teach you something about Jesus. The first important thing for any believer, any Christian, is to be like Jesus. That just sort of comes with the Bible. And the verse on your screen says, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, favor with God, and favor with men. Those same areas are where all of us need to put some work in this new year. Number one, growing in wisdom is growing in intellectual capacity. Ask yourself, what do I need to learn next year? You know, the old ad said, a mind is a terrible thing to lose. But if you don't use it, you will lose it. Solomon again says, do yourself a favor and learn all you can. Remember what you've learned and you'll prosper. Now, I don't know what it is. Maybe for you it's to open up that Bible and become a little better in that. Maybe for some of you it's open up any kind of book and just read more and get a broader perspective. Maybe it's finances. I know a lot of people need some real immediate help on finances this new year. Or maybe it's new skills. I don't know. But step number one, just to get started, all of us need to grow in wisdom. Just know a little more about what needs to be known. Number two is stature. And that's just plain Jesus grew up and got to be a big man. What are we going to do this new year? How many times have we said we're going to lose weight? Maybe this could be the year we actually do it. I don't know. I mean, maybe we need to go to bed earlier. Maybe we just need to exercise more. Maybe we need to stop eating junk food. I don't know what it is, but I do know that for a lot of you, this is God's recommendation. Being cheerful keeps you healthy. It's a slow death to be gloomy all the time. In other words, lighten up. There is nothing, very, very few things in this life that is worth the sleep we lose over them. Lighten up a little bit. What is it? Don't sweat the small stuff. And remember, with God, it's all small stuff. The third one, he grew up with favor with God, which are spiritual goals. A lot of people leave these behind, but you need to think about it. And I can tell you pretty easy where these start. You know, are you a believer? If not, you got some questions to wrestle with. Have you been baptized? If not, you got some questions you need to wrestle with. Have you joined a church family? Listen, there's a lot of wonderful church families out there. But until you make the commitment to become one of these families and pledge yourself to protect it and cherish it and support it, you're just not going to keep growing as a believer. How about that maturity that comes? How is your Bible study, your prayer life? Are you involved in a small group? Not many going today with the times. What's your ministry? Well, I think all of us need to examine that. Just think about it. Because the last piece of advice for you today is that Jesus also grew favor with people. And, this verse up there says each one should use whatever gift he's received to serve others. But I want to put a little different twist on that, because I think a lot of people are still trying to live life by themselves. And what they need to be doing is build a network of people around them. Not just a crowd, okay, that's not going to work. But a network of people who are trustworthy, people who will be honest with you, people who can help you, give you good advice, and people that you can serve as well. Because here's the bottom line. This place is a place where people find Jesus. And if we expect people to find Jesus in this place, we just assume that this place is already going to be filled with people who already know Jesus. People who look like Jesus, people who act like Jesus, people who teach like Jesus, people who think like Jesus. Now, I can't make any guarantees about this new year. Remember last year, every preacher in America had a sermon on God's 2020 vision for 2020. I guarantee you every preacher in the country had one sermon, something like that. I did too. And I can also guarantee you that none of those preachers said, hey, in 3 months, we're going to shut these churches down. We're not even going to come together and meet. Don't expect that was God's 2020 vision for 2020. So I'm going to be slow in making predictions for 2021. Except this. If you do it God's way, it will go better, regardless how it comes. Assume responsibility for your own life. Believe it can happen. Clarify what needs to happen. Just do it. Let's stand and share a beautiful final song this morning.